from this drill campaign, how would you characterize the results? Do you feel like you've reached the goals that you set out at the beginning? Were there any questions that you had asked the rocks, and were those questions answered? And what are you looking forward in the next round of drilling?
Good questions. I think the 2022 program achieved what the objectives were, and as you saw from the results around Taurus, the step out holes and the infill holes really showed that in those gaps, for example, in between some of the resource blocks, that there is continuity of mineralization. We already had indications of that from the geology, as I mentioned before. That's part of the reason the placement of the holes is using the geological understanding to say, hey, we know we have continuity of veins in this orientation. The resource blocks are spaced, infill to try and understand that continuity, shorten up those interpolation distances so we can actually join things up. So that was I think quite successful in the Taurus deposit. The drilling on the outside of the Taurus deposit, like for the example to the east, clearly showed additional areas of mineralization that were never identified before. There was no drilling in a lot of these areas, yet we're hitting mineralization. So the continuing hit ratio around Taurus, even in step out holes, remains, and there's no obvious restrictions yet on the distribution of that system on from the sense of the sort of property scale. So I think the Taurus mineralization for the looking for additional tori certainly achieved its objectives. Cassiar South, as just the nature of the veins, of course, we have high risk, high reward, because there the potential hit ratio is much lower just because of the nature of the distribution of the veins. Of course, if you tag into a new vein and you start drilling it off, you're going to have a hit in every hole. But to achieve that, of course, with the wide spacing of those veins, often the position underneath some of these units, you really have to have faith in these, in that you're going to get a lower ratio of intersections in those areas than you would, let's say, at Taurus. So I think within that perspective, yes, I think the program was successful. I was very impressed, for example, and I know the whole team was excited about the hits in the main mine area I showed you with some of the visible gold that was released this morning. That's a big area of alteration. It's very impressive. Wow. And we have gold in there with visible gold. So that's the kind of area that now in 2023 can follow up to track out where that goes. And similar in the Bain vein system, I mentioned there was a hit of another interval of the same grades that were mined historically, of a couple of meters at over 10 grams. And that's a big step out on the Bain vein system there, which suggests either a new step in the vein system or an offset of the vein system that had not been defined before. So I think with all of these areas, it all looks good. And in 2023, the company will continue to follow up some of those types of targets.